Alright, so we are now into the texturing phase. So we've completed our model, which is probably one of the longer phases. So texturing is actually not going to be overly difficult, but we are about to get into the most tedious section right now, which is UV unwrapping. But before we get into that, what we're going to do is we are going to sort out some file management. So basically we're just going to arrange our folders in a way that is useful. So we've got our references one already sorted. Now you want to have a folder just for your blends and a folder for your textures. And within your textures folder we have brushes, matte cap, and we're going to create a new one, and this is going to be called UV. And in here we're going to create a few separate folders. So I'm going to go mechanics, panels, armor, which is spelt wrong, armor, I think that's how armor is spelt, it's not really important, weapons, wheels, interior. Okay, now those layers match up with what I have here. So you can see I have my mechanics, my wheels, panels, the armor, and then we've got the rivets there as well, which I've separated out just so it's a little easier to view. Then with the interior, and I also have my lattice on another layer. With the weapons, and then on this layer over here we've just got the various bits. So that's another one. We need another set called various. So I have actually gone through and in between videos I have renamed every single item in the scene, which is useful. I recommend you do that. I recommend you do it while you go, but I know you're not going to, so no one does that. So yeah, I'm just going to turn all the layers back on now and turn off that one. So yeah, let's come back, let's create a new folder. I'm going to call this one here various, and this is the UVs. Now there is also going to be a textures folder, so there's going to be a, we're going to create a new one. This one here is going to be WIP for work in progress, and we're going to have final high and final low. And these ones are just where we have all of our bits and pieces. So if I just copy this, paste it into there, and paste it into those as well. So now we have all of these with various things. I've just got a matte cap in here, you can ignore that. You can get these from blenderartist.org. There's a whole bunch of these generated matte caps which I use for sculpting and stuff. And brushes, we're going to leave brushes in this directory. We're likely going to bring in a few more, which is just going to help us to sort of create the brush that we want. Okay, so that is basically it for now. We are going to go more in depth into this folder structure a little later, but it's for now this will do perfectly fine. Once we get into actually creating things like different textures for each object, we're going to be grouping them into their own folders, just for organisation's sake. And yeah, your final work in progress, this is going to contain a whole lot of PSD files. It's going to contain a lot of things like named untitled.001.png and stuff like that. So that's why I have a work in progress one, so that we can just remap them over to what we want them to be later on with the new blend file, and save all of those ones that we want in this final high. And then when we convert this down to low versions, I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to have time in this tutorial to convert this into a lower poly model, but they will go in the final low. So with that out of the way, let's begin UV unwrapping. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to do a couple. UV unwrapping is very easy to do, it's just a very tedious process. So I'm actually going to start with this mechanics layer and I'll just work my way through. So I'm going to show you probably one of each layer and then we will move on from there. Okay, so split your window is the first thing. Move this over to a UV image editor and we want to select a item. So I'm just going to bring this down and switch that back over to the outliner, and we change all scenes over to visible layers and we get all of this stuff here, and we can go alright, so just showing the hierarchy will show everything, even the things that are hidden. That's very important. So we'll start off with the frame main. Now I've got this here, and what we're going to do is go U Smart UV Project and an area weight of 1 and an island margin of a 0.02, and we get this kind of thing happen, which is great. This is basically what we want. So it's not perfect by any means. You can come in, you can grab, say, this one and this one and rotate it by a certain amount, so say something like that. And we grab these two, rotate those ones, Control P and then bring up F6 and go 0.02. And the reason we have this margin is just so that when we get into texture painting we will be able to do that quite easily. Now one thing that I just noticed, which I should have noticed before but I didn't, is this still has a mirror modifier on it. So we need to make sure we apply that mirror modifier and we apply the solidifier. We want to apply everything apart from the... hold on, why does this even have a solidifier? It shouldn't have a solidifier on it. Just going to turn that off, so just remove it. The thing here, because it's tubes, I think I put it on there for some visualization, then I didn't get rid of it. Okay, so yeah, that's fine like that. We'll never see into those gaps, so we'll see them from perhaps this distance, which is fine. Okay, so with that there, we can once again go Control P and that will pack it out with the new mesh. Now bear in mind you can add and remove edge loops, so we can say select this one here, we can remove that edge loop and it will update accordingly. We can add in an edge loop as well and that will update accordingly. And that edge loop we created was, I'll just turn on this option, that one. However, if we go to edge slide this, notice how the UV map does not update. That is why we say if we wanted a, undo that, a edge loop right here over the side, we would have to create an edge loop there, 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 and delete these. And that's the only way we can get one all the way over to there without distorting the UVs, unless you use the new add-on which allows you to do that, which is like a live UV update tool, something like that. And that one there will be, is quite good. So you just go through these and you go to the next one, make sure you apply the mirrors, and you go Smart UV Project, and you might need to come in and go Control P And you'll see with this one here, this is a very long UV, so we might need to go image, new image, and I'm just going to call this one here, let's go UV test long, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a width of 2048 and a height of 1024. It might double that actually. Let's go 2048 by 4096. Nah, let's get it there. And go UV test grid, click OK, and get something looking like this. So once again we're going to go Smart UV Project. It's going to throw them up like that, so rotate by 90 degrees, Control P to pack them in there, and make sure you've got it still set to 0.02, and that there will be fine like so. If this was a game we would be much more careful with it, but as it's not, that's going to be fine, and we will get into multiple UV maps and that kind of stuff later as well. Okay, so let's do another one. This one here. I'm actually going to save this image as well, so if we go into textures, and we're just going to go work in progress, various, I'm going to call this UV test long. Test does not need to be in capitals. Save that one, and I'm going to go image, new image, 1024 by 1024, should be fine. Oh, let's go to 2048 for this one. This one here is going to be UV test. Oops. Image, new image, UV test. UV test grid. Grab that, save as image, and just going to call this one here UV test. Alright, now if we grab this one and we go Smart UV Project, get something like that, and you can come in and you can sew up any edges you want. You can manually mark your seams, by the way. So for example, if I wanted to have this loop marked, so I'd go mark seam, and perhaps this one, and you go U, unwrap. We can do that, but it's not really going to be effective at the moment. So if we go clear seam, and also we got an error there, that is because its scale is not at 1. We can apply the scale and make sure nothing's affected, and that's going to help with UV. So we can go Smart UV Project, island weight of 1.02. Our area weight keeps them together, by the way. I'm not sure if I said that before. Angle limit, let's throw that up to maybe 84. Should maybe try that like 20. Let's split it up like every single face. Right, so 1.02, maybe 75. And we can dynamically change this, by the way, if you're not happy with the way things are going. So we can change it to maybe like 20, will give us this. 90 or 89 will give us that, and default of 66 is usually pretty good, so I might try 80 for now. That'll give us that kind of look. So yeah, that's those ones. Mechanics are going to be quite easy. Show you a couple of these. So we've got this one, let's see how Smart UV Project handles this. You'll generally find Smart UV Project will be used on everything. But laying out UVs manually is going to be awesome. It's going to do the job fantastic. It's going to be amazing, effectively. But it's also going to take a hell of a long time to do. Alright, so I'm splitting this up, and that's that one done effectively. So yeah, there's hardly any point me showing you all of these. I don't even know if it's worth time-lapsing, but I'll time-lapse it. If I think it's worth putting in, I'll put it in. So we can grab this one here. Make sure we grab the one on top of the list. Alright, so if we do that, let's go make sure scale is at 1. Smart UV Project. Let's see if we can get that a little better. Okay, so this one here is one that I'm going to UV manually. Mainly because it's pretty much a box shape, as you can see. So what we're going to do is unwrap it exactly as if we were unwrapping a box. Just your standard box, nothing fancy. So selecting the rims there, and it'll come around, and just making sure I've got this right. Yeah, I think that's the one. Unwrap that, and we'll get this. Alright, now there is a few things you can use. So we can use subsurf data if we want, and we can actually have it use the multi-resolution. You can use conformal and angle based, see which one gives a better result. So I'm liking this one, and yeah, that's fine at the moment. You can grab a few points, turn on proportional editing, and we'll make sure we in this mode, and just move them around and stuff. You can also go into UVs and UV sculpt mode, which brings up these settings, and there's not really a whole lot of options at the moment. We have grab, relax and pinch. We can do a few things. If you want the brush bigger, you actually have to zoom out, so let's go UV sculpt curve, give it a you can see it's not doing the ones that I've already got selected. So if we escape this, if we go, alright. Oh, there we go, lock borders, that was turned on. We don't want that turned on, so we will change the curve to be something like this, and now you can literally just push things around. And you can fix these up manually if you want as well. It's not going to matter too much. Maybe give it the relax tool. We'll conform it to a very a conformed state, really. So something like this, if that's what you're after. And I actually have no idea what HC and that does, but HC actually seems to work quite nice. And pinch, of course, will pinch things together if you so need it. So we can go turn off UV sculpt and Control P to pack that in, and that will be fine for that. We can grab the UV test and we can come over here, go GL cell, texture solid, and just see how that's appearing. And if you're happy with it, that's cool. If you're not, so yeah, we've got these stretching and happening around here. You can come back in and just go something else. Smart UV project will always give the best result for when it comes to stretching, sorting out stretching and stuff. But as I say, it's a little bit messy. So yeah, you can have a play with that, see what you like. You can weld them back together, so it's entirely up to you, really. For the most part, you're going to find that, where's my texture, uncheck that. For the most part, you're going to find that it's just going to be project. We are going to be texture painting. We're not likely going to be doing a lot in Photoshop. We might do a bit, but generally we will be doing it all in the Blender texture painting, because it is awesome. So yeah, you can, Photoshop becomes fairly redundant for anything other than tools like blur and sharpen and things that Blender doesn't do fantastically well. So yeah, I'm gonna time lapse this, and if it records alright, I will show that one there to you. See you soon. Alright, so we're going to be UV unwrapping quite fast now, and as you can see, I'm mostly just using UV project. I will be using some seam work on meshes like this that don't quite line up the way that they should, and you will find that you'll get some stretch sections such as this when you are UV unwrapping something that is not to a scale of 1:1:1. And it's quite easy just to fix that up in the UV editor. Now most of these mechanics we in the end just use procedural textures, so they don't require UV maps, but it is handy to, it's good practice to UV unwrap everything anyway. Okay, so just moving my way through the various parts of the scene. And notice there's a missing object up the top there. That is just because the normals are facing the wrong way, and I will fix that in a moment. Alright, so on these parts the UV project didn't work too well, so I manually am going in and adding in some seams. As you can see, Blender crashed. That's alright, you can just jump back where you left off. Alright, so most of these, as you can see, are just UV project. If you change the island weight and the area margins there, you can get some much better results. So the margin is the distance between your sections, so your islands, and your island weight is how much they will try and stick together. Okay, so just moving my way through. So nice and easy. Alright, so this section up here, where we've got these complex joins, I've decided to mirror it for one so that we only have to do two of them. And it's a good idea just to separate them out by creating a seam on each piece, and then creating seams around the inside bit to make that segment unwrap a lot more nicely. Okay, with that sorted, we'll move on. And you see I had a little bit of a problem with the instances there, so I just copied them and it worked fine. Okay, so you saw it before, these sections here, the automatic projections didn't really work too well. So manually marking the UVs will get a much nicer result for these ones. So you see the UVs here are not square. You really want to get your UVs as square as possible. I corrected that there, but it didn't. You can't see them now, but you definitely want to have your UVs square and nicely formed. Now the tyre here caused a little bit of grief. What I wanted to have these sections nicely unwrapped with all the bits just cut off from them. So in the end I just quickly went through and cut away all of those segments and just marked in seams everywhere that I needed them. So it's a little bit time consuming, but it gets a nice result. And you can see I'm getting some interesting effects with it spiraling around. That just means that I've forgotten a seam somewhere, and I believe I spent a little while trying to find it, but I found it eventually. So if you get some weird results where things just don't look right at all, chances are you're just missing a seam. And it doesn't have to be much, just only has to be one edge that hasn't got a seam on it, and it will ruin your entire UVs. It's unfortunate, but that's how it works. Alright, and there we go, there is the finished tyre. Moving on to the panels now. Just using automatic projection for pretty much all of this. These won't really be seen at all, so don't really need anything more than this. So you can see how fast I'm moving through this. So yeah, that's perfectly fine, that's all you need. Alright, so just making sure that these armoured pieces are a little bit better UV unwrapped. They will be prominently seen. Alright, so we're almost done with these panels. Alright, and to the interior. So that same process again. Now notice on the dash here, we have a lot of stretching going on. Now this is because the dash was scaled, I think, 10 times longer than it was supposed to be, so the scale was, I think, 3.1.1 or something like that. And you can't apply the scale on an object with a multi-resolution on it, unfortunately. So yeah, that's why Blender's crashing a lot, is because I was trying to apply the scale while it's got a multi-resolution, which doesn't quite work. So you've just got to fix them up. So it takes a little bit longer, but that's alright. Alright, so moving on to the seats. Nothing overly challenging, as you can see. Because our seats are single flat meshes that are being just wrapped around, you can actually just go unwrap and you don't even need any seams for most of it. So instead of automatic project, unwrap will actually give a very nice result. Alright, and we're about wrapped off in the interior, there we go, and off to the weapons. Same process again, automatic projection. Sounds cheap, I know, and the manual UVing does get a much nicer result, but it's easy. And there's no point wasting time unwrapping things that we probably won't texture anyway. So what I mean by not texture is not texture paint. We will be texturing things. Okay, now with the nozzle here, I had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out what was happening. Turns out I had a N-gon, which was messing around with the UVs. So if your UVs are going to a point and not quite working right, you might have an N-gon in there somewhere. Alright, now one mistake I made here is I linked up the object data while I had the modifier on, which caused Blender to stop for a while. As you saw, that was a while then, and this is at 8 times. So make sure you remove the modifiers on the other objects before you link them across. Otherwise you can generate a lot of geometry that is going to crash Blender. Alright, so just unwrapping the pistons there. And the rest of the mesh, and we're about done. So yeah, about ready to get into some texturing, which is awesome. So just unwrapping the tips there.